Some stories don't just live on the pages of history. They settle into unspoken spaces between family members, shaping responses, relationships, and even the way a person sees the world. That's the sort of story that I bring today. I'm Mark Roach. This is Transcendent, where pain, resilience, and a lifelong search for authenticity weave through every experience worth sharing. I started this channel with a focus on trauma and PTSD, drawn by my own history and the years I've spent watching the evolution of pain in people close to me. But it's increasingly clear that pain and the search for healing are universal currents in the human experience, not reserved for those who are diagnosed. We're all marked by moments, sometimes by the deep scars left before we were old enough to remember. Now, my perspective here is anything but abstract. I've watched people up close, especially two members of my family, each having survived a groin hernia in infancy. I laugh when I say that, partially because it makes me so uncomfortable to talk about a groin injury or flaw. It's so taboo. But these people ended up facing the same difficulty over a long period of time and many problems that, despite the passing of decades of advancements in medicine and differing circumstances, they still look very much alike. Now, if you follow common sense, you'd expect that, as we go through these different eras of rapidly evolving treatment options, that you would find that, we'd be delivering better outcomes over time. But when I looked at these two men in my life, years and circumstances apart, the deep struggles are stubbornly similar. When severe pain imprints itself early, especially pain that's unmanaged or poorly treated, it doesn't fade away with time. It doesn't care about improvements in surgical techniques or new drugs on the shelf. The consequences are profound, intricately etched into both the nervous system and the fabric of daily existence. Recent neuroscience and psychology research has made it painfully clear that severe pain in infancy does more than leave memories. It changes the very blueprint of the developing brain. Studies now show that infants who endure repeated or intense pain display lasting changes in both brain structure and function. We're talking about differences in white matter, altered thicknesses in key areas of the cortex dedicated to memory, attention, or emotional regulation, and shifts in the way nerve cells fire and communicate. These structural changes can lead to impaired cognitive development, issues with focus and learning, and a heightened or sometimes blunted reaction to pain and stress through life. But it goes even deeper. Early unmanaged pain rewires the pathways responsible for how we process pain, both physically and emotionally. The very circuits in the brain and the peripheral nervous system that are supposed to help us judge and recover from pain get molded in those early experiences. As a result, people can grow up with a lower threshold for pain, developing chronic pain syndromes, or confusingly, an insensitivity that makes it harder to even notice injuries when they happen. Both outcomes set a stage for struggle. Psychologically, the fallout is just as real. Children and adults who started life with this kind of invisible trauma show a bigger risk for anxiety, depression, PTSD, and a range of social difficulties. Their emotional centers, especially regions like the amygdala, which handles fear and threat perception, can be changed in ways that make stressors hit harder and recovery take longer. whether the pain turns inward as withdrawal and sadness or outward as agitation and hypervigilance, the shadow it casts is long. What does this mean for a life as a whole? Well, research tracks the impact into the domains that define our sense of possibility: school, work, relationships, an overall sense of well-being. People who suffered unmanaged pain early on score lower on quality of life measures. They face higher risk for disability, ongoing pain that resist ordinary treatment, and sometimes even reliance on substances to try to self-medicate something that feels ancient and immovable. The harsh truth is the nervous system, once rewired during these critical periods, is hard to reset, and most adult interventions fall short, never truly repairing what was lost. The story is even more complicated by the fact that as modern as our hospitals and tools may be, medicine is still playing catch-up when it comes to the nuances of infant pain. The tools to measure, recognize, and proactively treat severe pain in the youngest patients remain blunt or underused. Conversations about what these experiences do to the core of a developing human are just beginning. We have plenty of protocols and procedures, but little in the way of deep understanding or whole life remedies. So what are we left with? Well, first, an opportunity. Maybe a responsibility to truly see and witness pain and its echoes, even decades after the original wound has closed. To stop expecting technical advances alone to deliver healing, and to recognize that early childhood pain is more than a medical emergency. It's a foundational influence that shapes mind, body, and spirit across a lifetime. For families, for those living with the effects, and for anyone who works with children, this means moving beyond fixing and into a kind of listening, allowing these stories to change us. Sometimes healing begins not with erasing history, but with honoring its full weight. I'm Mark Roach. This is Transcendent, wishing you all the best.